Hey guys, and welcome to another video from Wolkify.com, a page for passionate people interested in personal growth and personal development. My name's Moritz, and in today's installment I want to share some ideas about how to better control your emotional state. If you sometimes feel like you're not really in charge of your own emotions, if you sometimes feel like you're more reacting towards your emotions instead of actively controlling them, then this video is for you. There are actually a couple of things that you can do right now to become more in charge of what you're feeling on a day-to-day basis and in turn increase your overall happiness. So check it out. Alright, so since I just mentioned happiness, let's start with that emotional state, shall we? Because let's face it, this is where we all want to go. Happiness is the holy grail of emotional state. We all want to feel happy as much as possible in our lives. And we're frankly all getting a little bit pissed off because we look at the social media, we look at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and we see all these happy people sharing their happiest moments. They always seem to be partying at some beach somewhere, they're always hanging out with their friends, drinking, having a good time, and then we look at our life, we compare it to what is going on in our world, and we're like, well fuck, why is my life such a mess? Why can't I be as happy as they are? Why do I always have to struggle and deal with all these problems? Well, let me share a little secret here. These people aren't happy all the time either. These people obviously just share the happy moments, just like you on social media. You always share the good times, you don't show the downside, you don't show the shitty times. So we're all hugely biased to believe that everyone else is always happy, when in fact they're not either. And frankly, the goal of this video is not to convince you that you should be happy at all times, or that I'm gonna teach you how to get rid of all your bad emotions, because this is simply not possible. The goal instead is to show you how to be a little bit happier when you're happy and how to not be as affected by the bad emotions once you're going through them. So now that you have recognized that the goal should not be to always be happy, but to sort of be able to embrace also the moments when you're not feeling so good about yourself, let's dig a little bit deeper into that. Let's say you're a little bit pissed off because somebody crossed you. You have this person and you just get angry when you even think of that person. You can feel it dwelling up inside of you. You can feel it coming up from your stomach all the way to your brain. And it's like a wave rushing over you. You cannot do anything. You're completely absorbed by this feeling of anger when you think of that person. It's very hard to separate yourself from that. You feel like you are becoming that feeling and there's nothing else you can think of. You become completely irrational. You only focus on that feeling in that moment. Well, this is very common and this is totally normal, but there are actually some things that you can do about that. For example, you can realize that you are actually not that feeling. You might feel that feeling and it might completely fill you up, but it's not you. You are still yourself and you're pretty much neutral as a person. Of course, we constantly have feelings, we constantly have thoughts, we're constantly interacting, but as a person we're pretty much neutral and we can train to become a neutral observer of the feelings that we're going through. If we feel that feeling of anger, we can actually recognize that we're going through that emotion right now, but as somebody who's merely observing that. We can sort of beam ourselves into a meta state where we're observing what is going on with us right now. So we look at what's happening and we can say, oh my god, this is amazing, all these emotions boiling up inside of me, I can really feel it going up, I can feel myself not being as rational anymore, I can feel the anger in my throat, I can feel it in my brain, I can feel it in my fingertips, but I'm merely observing that. I'm observing the emotions that I'm going through, but I'm not being guided by them. I'm not anymore reacting to them, I'm more actively controlling them and actively being in charge because I am the observer of what is going on. A very good way, a very effective way to train becoming that observer in this situation, which I must admit is very hard, especially at the beginning, is to meditate regularly. If you meditate regularly, you become someone who is able to observe his thoughts instead of being completely absorbed by his thoughts. Instead of identifying yourself with your thoughts and your emotions, you become somebody who is constantly observing what is going on inside you and what is going on with you. So if you, for example, train guided meditation, one thing they will teach you, among other scenarios, is to imagine that your mind is sort of like a blue sky. So you look at the blue sky and you see one cloud after another just passing by. You see these clouds and all you do is observe them. You are not the cloud, you're simply observing that a cloud is passing. Now in guided meditation, those clouds are representing your thoughts. These thoughts are things that cannot be suppressed. We cannot be without thoughts for very long, but it's okay to simply observe them without completely identifying ourselves with those thoughts. And the same goes for emotions. If you're able to observe your emotions instead of identifying yourself with them, you're gonna be able to detach yourself from them and take that meta perspective, that observer perspective that I was talking about. So once you're able to put yourself in that observer mode on a more regular basis in your day-to-day routine, then you're gonna be able to recognize some patterns here. So for example, you're gonna know what makes you happy normally, and you're gonna be able on the other side to see what makes you sad, what makes you frightened, what makes you angry. You're gonna have certain people that make you happy, and you're gonna have certain people that make you sad. You're gonna have certain media that you consume that is gonna have a negative or a positive effect. And based on that, you can alter your life, you can alter your routines, you can alter your habits and adjust according to what you have observed in that meta state. Another very important thing that you have to keep in mind if you want to get out of a bad mood or control your bad mood better is the concept of a state change. People can be in certain states, but of course you're gonna be able to change your state, and people do that all the time. For example, they turn on the radio, they know listening to music makes them happy. It creates a state change, just like that. You might be pissed from work, but you come home, you put on the radio, and you're good to go, you're fine. Suddenly you're in a happy mood, right? Another thing could be meeting with friends, another thing could be going out partying. So these are all different things that create a state change. And you have to find out for yourself how you can trigger that state change. Another tip that I have for you to snap right out of your bad state is to not dwell on your bad feelings for too long. Actually, as human beings, we're not designed to do that. We're not designed to prolong our bad emotions for an extended period of time. Instead, we're designed to constantly be in a new state, constantly have these state changes. But what happens is that we're addicted to having strong feelings, and that can be positive, for example happiness or lust or whatever it might be for you, but it can also be negative. So if you're feeling angry about somebody, you might actually be addicted to constantly feeling like that. And what your brain then does is to constantly think about what makes you angry, constantly triggers you back into that bad emotional state instead of just letting you free and let you go into a different state. So what you then have to do is to realize that you need to snap out of this thinking about the thing that made you angry. You have to snap out of that constant loop of thinking about something negative to transform into that happier state. And with that also meditation can help you a lot. If you're able to control your thoughts and to observe your thoughts without being completely absorbed by them, which you will learn through meditation over time, then you're gonna be able to detach yourself from those negative thoughts that put you in a negative emotional state as well. You're gonna be able to detach yourself from them and just simply let go of them. You might still feel them when it actually happens, when something pisses you off or when something frightens you, when you're concerned about something. Of course, you're still gonna have that negative emotions, but you're not gonna carry it with you the entire day or even weeks or months. This is simply not necessary, and you can train that by meditating, by being not on the receiving end of your emotions and thoughts, but actually by taking that observer role, so you can simply let go of what does not matter anymore. So by now you might be thinking, okay Moritz, this is all nice and good. I like to be in charge of my own emotions and not always be so reactive, but what's the bigger picture here? Why does this really matter on a bigger scale? Well, the thing is, if you make any sort of plans for yourself and you're in a very rational mood, you lay out what you want to accomplish in the next 5 months, in the next 5 years, whatever it might be, then it's very good to not be emotional about your goals, because you want to be very rational in what you want to accomplish, right? But as you go along, as you follow your path and your laid out plan, there's always gonna be emotions. There's always gonna be something happening, and if you are not in control of your emotional state, you will very easily be sidetracked. It will be very easy for you to completely change your plans, completely make a 180, turn around, walk into the other direction, simply because your emotional state changed. We're so very affected by our emotions, and if we're not able to control them, it can completely fuck up our lives, right? It can completely ruin all the goals that we so nicely set for ourselves if we're not then able to actually follow through with them and ignore all the bad emotions that might possibly connect it to the path that we're on. If we're not able to ignore them and acknowledge them, but still keep walking into the right direction, then we will never reach our goals. If you're interested in going even deeper into this topic, I can recommend you a couple of really good sources that I found very helpful. First is an app called Headspace, right like that. And it's a guy giving lessons in guided meditation. He will teach you how to snap into this observer mode and not get too absorbed by your everyday thoughts. Secondly, there's a book by a guy called Sam Harris, looks right like that up here. It's called Waking Up, and it's about spirituality in the broadest sense. It's about meditation, about mindfulness, about Eastern philosophy, which I found very interesting, and the guy definitely knows what he's talking about. So make sure to check that out. And then one of the all-time classics and one of my all-time favorites, it's Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, this is a classic in self-development for a long time now, and the reason why I mention it in this video is that I remember in the last chapter, which he called Sharpening the Saw, he actually mentions a situation where he was about to go for a run, but it was raining, the weather wasn't that great, it was already dark and cold, he was tired, so he really didn't feel like going what he planned to do. But he decided to go anyway, simply because he felt like it's creating momentum, but also it is training his capacity to control his emotional state. So even though he didn't feel like it, he felt like it's a good thing to train to be able to snap himself right out of that bad emotional state. And of course, the second he started running, he already felt like it's a good thing that he went. He already felt like the bad emotions that he felt previously were going away, and he could fully embrace the run that he was facing. So just some interesting ideas, I find. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the support that you're showing. If you're interested in more videos like that, please just leave me a comment down below. You can also tell me what you would be interested to hear more about from me. Also leave a like, and if you like this kind of video, just subscribe so you're gonna get a lot more in the future. Thank you so much for watching again. Talk to you next time.